everyone. Just actually starting a minute early because almost everyone is here, and thank you all for being present and on time. We appreciate that. In the room from THN today, we have myself, Mary Dodson, Sophia Cheka, Caitlin Bear, and Craig, our IT master.
Hello, everyone.
I'm just going to be transparent with you all, which I do. We've had, not that things haven't been crazy since the Tier 2 announcements, but a particularly crazy morning with HUD. So please give me some grace if I'm a little scatterbrained. I will do my best to prevent that from happening. And if we can unmute and just have everyone who's on the call please introduce yourselves.
So he's saying, basically, for you, Mike, that your goal is 100, right? And this number right here.
Okay, so one more time. We're going to unmute you all to have you introduce yourselves. If you are, I don't know, in a meeting or on a call, could you mute yourself? And we'll hear from everyone else.
We're the 32 folks. That's what he's asking.
And that's why I was saying, going by the service law.
Carol, can you hear us? Hannah, what about you? You there?
This is Karen.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Jesse, what about you? How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm doing good.
Julie, are you with us today? Beautiful. Karen, how about you?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. And Mr. Cagle, how you doing today?
Doing great.
All right. That's everybody. Bobby, I have you muted because I can still hear your meeting. So when you need something, just raise your hand for me, buddy.
So, yeah, I hope those of you we can't hear or can't speak will be able to do so when we vote.
In reality,
okay. Have we heard back from Carol?
Carol is here.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, well, we're going to move forward, and as I indicated in my email to you all, one, I hope everyone reviewed meetings from the last 2 minutes. As discussed at the last meeting, we are going to be approving those. That's going to be our first order of business for every meeting from now on. So we're going to approve the March and April minutes. I sent those for you all to review twice, and I also hope those of you who weren't able to attend the RPG meeting listen to that. There was a lot, obviously, of important information, and I'm hoping not to have to review it all today, but can certainly answer questions about it. So we're just going to go ahead and move forward to voting on approving the March and April meeting minutes. I'm actually going to do this with one vote. So I need someone to make a motion.
I make a motion to approve March and April meetings.
I need a second.
I second. Jesse.
Jesse, and then all remaining votes. Can either speak or type those into Craig.
Aye.
Aye. This is Hannah. Aye.
Adam, aye.
Julia and Bobby, though.
Hey, Bobby, can you type in your vote for me, buddy? And who missing? Julia?
Yes.
Hello? Hello?
Hi, Julia.
Oh, hi, you can hear me okay. So, yes, I vote aye.
Got it. Julia's an aye.
Bobby?
Yeah, but look at this, because the meetings aren't matching. I pulled this today.
Yeah, that's what I said. Honestly,
Thank you, sir.
I know Edward, but I don't know him like that.
Yeah.
He's still talking to someone else.
That was all eyes. He said aye.
Are you sure?
Yeah, he said a red poster talking.
Hey, I heard it.
Okay, all right. Oh, how many multitaskers? We understand. Okay, it looks like the meetings have been approved, and that will be indicated in meetings for, well, the minutes for this meeting. Thank you all for that. I'm going to move right on to current priority projects. Oh, I'm so sorry. Mary is going to talk to you all about ratification for the electronic votes.
Hello, everyone. You all have taken 2 electronic votes in the past few months, and per the electronic voting policy, any voting that you do electronically needs to be ratified at a board meeting, just the results of the voting. And so just as a reminder, we're putting up the action items from March 9th. That was to vote on the COC-wide definition for ending veteran homelessness. Action 2 was voting on Montgomery County leaving the BoS COC and joining the Houston, Harris County, Fort Bend County COC. And Action 3 was to vote on reallocation of supported services only project funding. And action items 1 and 2 received a unanimous 8 yeses and 0 nos. Action 3, 2 people had to recuse themselves, Carol and Jesse, because their projects are currently receiving COC program funding, but we had 6 yeses and 0 nos. So all 3 of those actions passed. And so we will record in today's meeting minutes that those were, in fact, the official results of that electronic vote in March. The second electronic vote was held in late May 24th, and we have those up on the screen. The action item 1 was to vote on submitting no project applications for transitional housing in the upcoming FY26 Continuum of Care Program competition. And action 2 was a vote on requiring permanent supportive housing projects to use a housing first or at minimum low barrier approach. And again, Jesse and Carol recused themselves because their projects received Continuum of Care Program funding, but for both votes received 6 of 6 yeses. So all 5 voting items that you all have done electronically over the past few months have been voted on, and with this announcement in this meeting, we're considering those votes ratified.
Thank you, Mary. As always, if you all have questions, please raise your hand. Oh, everyone's still unmuted, so you're all with us. That's even better. Obviously, and if you all have any questions about the votes that we just took on the 24th, obviously the vote that we took on the SSO funding was not a factor because we lost those projects, and frankly, I'm just going to say it waited too long to reallocate them, which is unfortunate. So the 2015 competition, again, I hope you all were able to listen to the RPG meeting. I'm not going to go into the detail that I did because it was a lot, and we covered you know, our understanding of the Tier 2 cuts and how we need to move forward as a balance of state, and a very, very clear message that we and many other COCs received from HUD regarding transitional housing, housing first, low barrier housing, coordinated entry, prioritization, and we'll talk a little bit more, and we'll show y'all one of the incorrect scoring sheets we've received from HUD because, yeah, I'll get into more details about our debriefing with them, but there were several mistakes on our score sheet. Unfortunately, those mistakes have not resulted in additional points for our continuum, but some of them are still outstanding, and they might. We don't anticipate this will change anything about the awards we received, but we still want those to be accurate. So just quickly, we're going to take a look at the Tier 2, the prioritization versus our awards. Sorry, we've got lots of materials for this meeting. So if y'all look, you can see how our projects were ranked and what projects were funded and where, actually we don't have that Tier 2 line clearly indicated on there.
I can show you.
Let's scroll back up. It's the green. So project 21 is where our Tier 2 line was. So that and above was 85% of our ARD. That project was actually a straddle project. It was Gulf Coast Transitional Housing, and they got only a portion of their funding. So they had a reduction. Projects 22 through 38 were not funded. Yeah, it was, like I said, in the meeting, and we've been saying just deep, devastating, shocking. I mean, we've known this was coming at some point, but the way in which it happened for these projects and these clients is just been devastating is the word. We also included the city and county for those projects to the right. Again, this happened to several CoCs across the country. I'm sure if you all have been paying attention to the media, you've seen lots of articles and stories on this. Again, you know, one of the first things I asked about when I started this position here was about our transitional housing stock and why it was still so high. And I think, again, we know we are unique as a balance of state, but it's unfortunate we didn't have an opportunity to reallocate those projects before this happened. We were working very closely with HUD TA to do that and start doing that in this next competition, and a lot of it has been now done for us in the most unfortunate way possible. I mean, we've had projects who were 6-7 months into their grant cycle only to find out they were not getting funded. Buildings are being sold. I mean, it is, again, devastating is the most appropriate word I can use right now. We have been working with HUD. We have made it very clear that the way in which these cuts occurred is just absolutely unacceptable. We know that they're not going to change, but we have been advocating for those of you that were impacted and for all of our projects. We submitted an appeal to HUD. We are working with USICH. We're working with ACT. We submitted a letter with several other continuums about just this process and the way in which it occurred, and requested more transparency from HUD. You know, and our language was very clear, and that, and so you all know essentially what happened. I mean, this is breaking it down in very simple terms. They scored us on a lot of things that were not included in this competition, right? So things that we are going to be seeing coming up, they scored us on now, and we lost lots of points. You know, the transitional housing message, like I said, the writing has been on the wall. We can no longer afford to submit those projects. We cannot afford to lose any more funding in the balance of state. And everything that we are working on now is to prevent that from happening. That's going to include, obviously, reallocation of all of our transitional projects. We're going to be working with you all on our plan for that. We are still waiting on a lot of guidance from HUD on how to move forward. We are working with APT and actually just got confirmation this week finally that they will be able to assist us with that, which is great because we need help. We're helping 17 projects close. We are working with 9 to reallocate. We anticipate a competition being, the NOFA being dropped potentially even at the end of June, which on the one hand, it will help projects with that funding gap, which, was especially difficult for projects who were far into their grant cycle when these cuts happened. However, as the CoC, to think about working on that competition while we're doing all of these other things right now is a little daunting. Just going to let you all know now, there's likely going to be special called meetings, electronic votes. I know our official meeting is not scheduled until August. We may need to have a July meeting. We have a lot of work to do, and we need your help. And I think the electronic voting has been great for all of us, so we'll be using that when we feel it's appropriate. But I just, again, in the spirit of transparency, want to let you all know that that's probably coming. We are also working on, we're waiting on information from HUD that we just received, put together as much information as possible that we can to assist projects that lost their funding. That's going to include information on their closeouts with HUD, some potential options to look into funding. We're not very confident most of those will work out, but we want to give projects as much information as possible. And it's also going to include the option to request a letter of support from THN and the balance of state to obtain alternative funding to continue projects. I will let you all know that it's looking like right now several of our projects in some form or fashion are going to remain open. We do have a few that have already closed their doors, unfortunately, some that did that on the day the announcement came out. And those were projects that were, like I said, 6-7 months in. And as you all know, we're essentially fronting their projects while waiting for the announcements. We have not heard back yet on our appeal to HUD. We did have our debriefing with them this week. We are not sure at this time if we'll receive an official response for our appeal or if they're considering our debriefing the response. We're asking for clarification for that. And before I pull up the scores to review, I just wanted to see if anyone had any questions or comments about the competition, about the cuts, about things I said or we, as the balance of state expressed during the RPG meeting. Okay, I'm going to move forward. Obviously, if something comes up, feel free to speak up or raise your hand. So if we can, there we go. So this is a really baseline analysis of our CoC application score that actually we did. In our debriefing with HUD on Monday, we pointed out several areas that we felt we should have been given points and they were not awarded. HUD has now responded to that and indicated that the scoring they sent out to us initially was correct, but the possible points were off. So our hope today had been to show you all what we received from HUD and be able to very clearly do that. Since there were several mistakes made by HUD and we don't have our final score sheet back yet, we cannot share that with you. I will tell you, it seems like the one thing we're waiting on from them that could get us additional points is our point in time count information. But if you take a look at what we put up on the screen, the CoC engagement, HMIS system performance, those, go down the line on those. Those were the major scoring components. And then the percentage is what we received, at least of the points that they've given us thus far, which are going to change. So I want to point out, some places we did well. PHAs, we scored the max, and that's any public housing authority that has set aside a preference for homeless individuals. So the NOFA was my first week, and I'll just tell y'all, I spent like 3 days contacting every housing authority in the balance of state, which is, I don't even remember the number, and I only ended up getting confirmation and hearing back from maybe 5, which got us our full points, which is great. But wow, we would have loved to have been able to use that time for something else. But anyway, I hope those of you on the call, if your housing authority does not already have a preference and you're working on that or want to, please let us know. We actually did okay on low barrier, but we have found that a lot of our projects, while they check the right boxes on the application, in practice, they are not low barrier. So we're working closely with them to make sure that this isn't just a box we're ticking on an application, that indeed in practice they are low barrier, and that is because HUD is working toward not just looking at the boxes, right? They're looking at the data, and I will give you an example of that as we move down. Housing First, I believe we're one of the 2 lowest scoring CoCs in the country, and we've already shown you all and showed at the RPG meeting that report that came out in, I believe, December. This is no longer an option for us, and I project it will be much more heavily weighted in this next competition. Project evaluation and ranking, this is one area where HUD told us we had done a really good job, and then we asked them then why we only scored 38% of the points. This was one of the mistakes we're waiting to hear back on. Again, it doesn't look like we're going to get additional points. It looks like they put the wrong max score on our sheet. And we are not the only CoC that mistakes were made. Participant severity of needs and vulnerability, we got full points. Reducing length of time homeless, we got full points. Returns to homeless, we got full points. Adopted order of priority for the chronically homeless in permanent supportive housing projects, we did not get any points because we have not adopted HUD's priority preference for that. That is an action item and a vote we are going to take today. And this is one of the areas I just mentioned where we now see HUD is not just looking at boxes being checked. And honestly, that was really comforting to me because what happened with lots of CoCs, and I'll tell you all, the average score on this was 0 because lots of CoCs have adopted this priority, but when HUD went in and looked at the data, it was very clear they weren't actually following it. So we are not only going to adopt it, we are going to review data to make sure it's actually happening. Second area where we did not score well was permanent supportive housing beds prioritized for chronically homeless persons. Moving forward, this is not an option for our PSH projects. And using HMIS, unaccompanied youth who are in a sheltered situation, we did score full points. So we also got points for early submission. So our score was 126. We anticipate that's going to increase a little bit. And Mary, tell me if I'm wrong, the median score was 157. So we are about 20 points behind the average, and that's unacceptable. It's not shocking considering kind of where we are. Nobody here was really surprised. We were surprised, of course, about that scoring. So I'll ask again if anyone has any questions. Okay, when we actually receive an accurate score sheet from HUD, obviously we'll be reviewing that with you all, and we'll use that to guide us in the next competition. It's another reason, we've got lots of discussions and votes to take on reallocation, but we've got to receive some more information from HUD before we can move forward with those things. I feel like I already covered what we're hoping to do with projects that were not awarded. Again, if anyone has any questions about that, feel free to speak up or type something in. Unfortunately, some of those projects have already closed, and more unfortunately, we have been waiting a very long time to get information from HUD that we needed to help with this process. So to date, We have spoken to every one of these projects individually, less one who is not returning our calls, which I understand. We'll continue to try and reach out, and we'll still, of course, offer our support and this letter of support to them. You know, and I know we have folks on the call that were impacted by the cuts and will be by reallocation. And if there's anything you all would like to share with the board at this time or ask us, please feel free to do so.
This is Justin Corpus. I think originally before the cuts were announced, or we talked about the supportive service only projects in Corpus Christi, and that those funds would possibly be available during the next competition for reallocation. But at this point, the projects that were cut and the funding that was lost, is it lost for good?
Yeah, so Jesse, yeah, we've lost the opportunity to allocate those because we didn't get to it soon enough.
Okay.
Again, and thank you for that. And with the transitional housing stock, were kind of big surprises to me that I wanted to make sure we addressed, and the SSOs were the first thing, which is why we took that vote. And unfortunately, it was too late. So yeah, we have lost those dollars. We are unable to reallocate them, and it's, you know, Eric had been working with those projects, I believe, for 3 years, even going so far as to hire consultants. So I can say, you know, I can absolutely appreciate him giving them that time, but now, again, writing is on the wall. That's why we're not going to be funding any transitional housing moving forward. All we feel that will do at this time is take away more money from the CoC. You know, and the other thing is, I think, and this is something we've brought up with HUD, USICH, APT, the other COCs, everyone we're talking to about all of this, is that, because I want you all to know this, we brought these things up, right? We said our TA providers knew we were taking these steps. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear like there's a whole lot of communication happening between our TA and HUD headquarters, and that is also something we've brought up in this letter that we have signed with multiple other continuums at requesting that HUD increase communication. But unfortunately, it is what it is, and we are where we are now. Yeah. I'll just, and Craig just brought up a good thing. I'll let you all also know, in all of these, in our appeal, in our contact with USICH, and all of this advocacy work we're doing around the way in which these cuts occurred, we also have been asking and will continue to ask how we get access to our PPRN. And for those of you that don't know, that's been money that, and you can't see me, but I'm, in quotes, Nixon style, has been allocated to our continuum of care, but we can't access it. And it's not acceptable. And I can tell you right now, I'm not going to keep quiet about it, and am having conversations almost weekly. We're planning to discuss it at NAEH. Hopefully we're not working on the NOFA during that, which could be a possibility, but I really think, as devastating as this has all been, we definitely have a very clear path right now. We know some decisions just have to be made immediately in order to continue serving the clients we have in the continuum. Really have to up the game with our expectations with projects. Like low performers, we're going to need to discuss. We're going to need to discuss with you all some of our projects that are wanting to reallocate. And again, we've got to do everything we can to prevent risking additional dollars leaving this continuum. And we are also fighting to get access to those dollars that have been allocated to us that we can't seem to touch. I suspect because of the cuts and just because of work we've been doing, because we have new communities and new projects, that we are going to have a very healthy amount of bonus applications, which we are really pleased about, and our hope is, and kind of the word on the street is that we're going to have access to a lot more dollars through bonus projects this year. We're hoping that's a way for us to increase our ARD, get some of those dollars back, and also, of course, increase housing across the continuum. You know, and bring some projects in with very clear expectations from the beginning about who is to be served, how they are to be served, and that those projects will help boost our current inventory as we kind of work through some of these changes with our existing projects. And we know that's a ways away, but yeah, we are anticipating several bonus applications, at least at this time. As you all know, we never know when the NOFA is going to come out. It very much guides how the competition goes and will impact how our reallocation goes. We're trying to get as much information as we can to work with our projects that need to reallocate before then. It's been slow going. We're just kind of getting some things from HUD that we think will be helpful. Like I said, we're working with APT. I did send out a invite for an initial webinar with those projects reallocating for next week. We're going to be doing more of those. We're going to be sending out information. We're going to be working with you all to determine if there are any projects that want to reallocate that don't meet threshold or don't have the capacity to reallocate. We suspect some may voluntarily have this be their last project year. Which could result in some additional dollars. Right now, we're advising those projects to only plan for their current grant amount, just because that is all we can do right now. And in addition to that, we still have I think you all know we lost our HMIS grant. That was placed in Tier 2, and the intention was to kind of serve, and this is how this has worked for years in a lot of COCs. That would buffer some of our housing projects, right? That didn't happen. There was a straight line and HMIS was under it. So Eric and I are working to figure out how to move forward, and we will. I don't have a doubt exactly how that's going to happen. We don't know yet. We're reaching out to the state. HUD has agreed to provide us support in reaching out to the state for that funding. I know a lot of projects and members around the balance of state have said there are concerns like we lost the grant and HMIS is gone. HMIS is not gone. The support will be here. We can't function as a COC without it, which is one of the reasons we were so shocked that we lost it. And I'll also tell you, we were one of 33 continuums that did the exact same thing with HMIS.
Bobby said, what about seeing TVC may help fund it since it does have a veteran priority?
I mean,
They're on
Bobby?
They're on TIC.
Yeah, I mean, we're open to any ideas, so keep them coming, and thank you. Yeah, I'll say that. Thanks, Bobby, and I'll throw a plea out there. If you all have any ideas, let us know. As you all know, getting support statewide, especially for data, is really challenging. Nobody wants to fund that, and I can understand that. But yeah, we're working. We're doing all we can. So you all know we have already had to let a staff member go, and we're looking at every avenue. We've requested an extension for that grant to get us through, until we can figure something out, and we will. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought someone was about to speak. So I'm kind of hitting all of these. I apologize. I'm not sticking to our numerals here. The board votes on the 24th obviously were a direct result of the NOFA, well, not the NOFA, the cuts. And I can tell you I've spoken to several COCs that did that almost immediately. And and we appreciate you all understanding and your support on those. Did we pull those up? Do we have those up?
I went and we looked at.
Okay,
But
we
can
looked
do
at
it
that.
again.
No, we already did. So working with projects to reallocate, again, we've had all those initial calls. We are waiting on information from HUD. We've asked projects to start really examining their capacity to reallocate to one of these project types, to look into these project types, to understand what this shift would look like. We are working on some materials to send out. Again, we've kind of been waiting for HUD. But we hope to have those out to you all very soon, those that are being asked to reallocate, and then are going to need to work with the board to determine, again, if there are any projects that don't have capacity or projects that decline to renew, and then determine what we need to do with that funding. One of those conversations is going to be about HMIS. If there are additional funds, we need to seriously consider allocating them to HMIS, and we'll talk a little bit later about a vote today regarding that. I think I already covered how much we need y'all, and we're going to need y'all in the next couple of months. I don't think anyone could have prepared for kind of the firefighting situation we're in now. And we always feel like we're there, but this is a whole new level. Our firefighting skills are going to be like, I mean, yeah, we got you after this. And I can also tell you all, this has been, and I said this at the RPG meeting, but for a lot of us, most definitely Eric and I, the hardest hit professionally, certainly of my career in 15 years working in homeless services. And we are all going to make the most of this, and we're going to be stronger for it, and we are going to get more money and get more housing and move forward. We know it's not going to be easy, and we appreciate your support as we work through this. Moving on to current grantees, and again, y'all feel free to speak up or raise your hand. We want to hear from you. We have completed, finally, our one-on-one project review calls, and I just cannot tell you how useful they have been for us and for the projects. Every call, somebody is learning something crucial, and a lot of it comes down to changes with the CoC program over the years. I think in some cases, formerly, some capacity issues with THN, also folks kind of just going with the flow year after year and not really understanding the HUD changes, nor taking time to read new contracts or reviewing their data on a quarterly basis. All of these things are going to be put into place, and again, we're going to be better for it, but I have to say the feedback on these calls, even the really challenging ones, has been so positive. And just every time we're able to take the time and sit down and talk with grantees, we learn more, they learn more, and we have to, and I said this in the RPG meeting, as a balance of state, we're doing things other COCs just don't have to do and don't understand. It is not simple as calling a couple monthly meetings and seeing the faces of everyone you work with and looking at their data in one county. And I can speak from my experience in Austin. And I thought I had an idea when I came here. Y'all, I had no idea. And that's the other thing we're talking to HUD about is this is not apples to apples. Like, you cannot compare a one county COC to a COC that's covering 215 counties. And I don't care how many projects you have or where they are. It's about access and communication, right? And we are limited in both of those things. More so now than ever, honestly, with these cuts and with our current travel budget. So we have to make the most of what we've got, and it requires grantees to be well informed, to understand their projects, to make sure they read the HUD updates, to make sure they read our updates, and to know that if we send something out that's mandatory, there's a reason. We know y'all are busy. We know y'all are doing the work on the ground, but these things are not because we're bored and looking for things to do, that they're because we want to make your projects more effective and we want you to continue getting funded. That is our goal. The HUD doesn't still seem to understand that in addition to our grantees, we're working with 25 local homeless coalitions. So you all work with those coalitions. You know kind of the ins and outs and just the issues you experience on a local level. For us to keep track of all of those is almost impossible, but we are definitely we have to shift the focus right now to our grantees. If we don't do that, we're not going to have money for the LHCs that don't currently get funding. It's not going to be there.
So Bobby's got a recommendation or a suggestion actually. When the notebook opens up again, why don't we spend the time to have a day-long conference to allow providers to come to regionally held working groups to write proposals with THN guidance so they don't make the common mistakes that have happened to cause losses. TBC does this and it seems to make better proposals submitted that are successful.
So thanks, Bobby, and that's a good suggestion. I don't know. Our projects, one we found, they don't have the money to travel to us. And unfortunately, we don't have the money to travel to them. THN has always done multiple webinars in preparation for the NOFA. We'll do that again. I think a lot of the things that you've hit on is that, yeah, as we're doing these reviews, we're looking at project descriptions that have not changed in 6 or 7 years. When you all know and we know that the requirements have changed, the expectations have changed. So in our project review calls, we have gone through in depth every application that was submitted last year and given them guidance on where they need to change. The other thing is, it is a competition. So we are limited in what we can and can't provide. So we will provide as much guidance and detail as possible. That's the reason we've done these reviews. We're already telling projects, go look at last year's competition. Yes, it will change, but know what you need to be prepared for. Look at your notes on your project review where we told you, things needed to be updated, where we told you your performance was low. Start working on that now. So we've kind of been doing that work over the course of the last few months, really since February when we started our Provider Connect workshops where we were able, to go to each community and meet with grantees. So we will provide as much support as we can. It'll be done by then. But we can't write grants for people, and I also realize, yeah, there may be some help THN has provided in the past that it's a thin line, y'all, and I'm not crossing any of those right now with HUD. So we are going to do everything we can to support. We're going to do multiple webinars. We're going to, I think this competition is going to be very different from anyone that has ever happened before. And I'll also tell you our threshold review is going to be much, much more in depth because honestly, a lot of these things could have been caught at that time and they just weren't. And again, I honestly think the only thing is capacity, right? I mean, you can only do what you can do, and the CoC here has been operating with such, just not enough staff. I mean, period, the end. And we still don't have enough staff. But we have a solid plan. We are on the road. We've brought up all these issues with grantees, and I feel like you're going to have our strongest application probably ever this next competition. That's assuming, yeah, as long as we can all survive to get to that point, that's our plan. Yeah, and again, y'all, don't be shy. I'm going to keep going, but please don't be shy. We have started internal process review calls with coordinated entry with our projects. So I think you all know kind of, and if you don't, we can tell you where we are with CE, kind of have taken a step back, realized there were lots of crucial pieces missing. This is another thing. We are not backing down from HUD on is how this requirement, while we agree 100%, and y'all have heard me say it, I think this is something HUD got right. And even if they didn't, we got to do it. But that, you know, again, doing this in one county and one city is one thing, and it's still not an easy thing. And it's a thing in Austin that we talked about for 3 years before anything happened. You know, so we are going to be heavily relying on LHCs and local communities. Sophia's been doing a series of webinars I think everyone is finding incredibly helpful. We are focusing that on our pilot communities that have already been identified and on our grantees. And our grantees, and we'll talk about this, is, this falls into the CP notice we'll go over, is that one thing we know we can do, and we can do now, is while we're tweaking CE, is ensure that our grantees are using the tool and that they're prioritizing, right? And everybody so far, at least from what they've told us, they're on board, they're getting it. We've actually had a couple calls where we thought we were just talking to a grantee, and then they're like, oh no, we're going to be the entry point for the whole community, and let's do this. So, which is great. Like, the enthusiasm is fantastic. We also want to make sure communities are really working closely with us on that implementation so they don't have to go back. Because it is going to change, we know that, but nobody needs to go through the mistakes that we've learned at THN or that I've learned at Austin or that we've learned with working with other communities. Like, if we can save folks from those, that's what we want to do. So I will say that we've been really encouraged by the enthusiasm. And when we talk a little later today about RPG, that'll also kind of is in line with what we're saying, with communities taking this on, because it is just impossible for us to do it all. So working with you all, providing you all with tools, strategies, steps to take, and then checking in with us kind of as each of those things are happening, we're gonna get there. And wow, tangent, Cameron, but not really. Internal process review calls. So, and I just also want to say, we're going to be asking a lot of you all, and we're asking a lot of our grantees, and we know everybody is busy. Dear Lord, we know. We are all, like, there's just not a free second around here, and we get, you all are busy, and you all are doing this work on the ground, and we know how complex and chaotic that can be. That's why we're all at THN, but we've got to get this stuff done moving forward. And the reason we'd started all of this, but especially after the announcements, we're just pushing forward. If no one has questions, I'm going to move into our proposed policies and action items. And I mean, y'all, yeah, we've got a million other current priority projects. We're working on system-wide performance measures, which is in some ways going to change a lot of the way the whole CoC looks at data. In other ways, it's a lot of things we're already looking at, just worded a little differently. In some cases, it's measuring things as a system that we've never looked at before. And this is going to be another challenge for us in our geography, because they're system-wide for a reason, right? They're looking at the whole system. In some cases, it's just CoC-funded projects, and in other cases, it's all of our projects in HMIS. And I can tell you, we are in need of a massive overhaul with HMIS and cleanup. We have been doing great work. I cannot tell you how much progress HMIS has made, and recently I've really encouraged, and they've also on their own, our data coordinators started working closely with HMIS, and it's exciting to see the things that are happening as a result of that. But system-wide is just another way that shows us how, yes, your individual projects matter, but as a whole, we are being looked at. So, each one of your project's performance is impacting other projects' funding. And for our HMIS projects that don't have a funding mandate, it's extremely challenging to get them to do what we need them to do per HUD guidelines. And that's something else we are going to be talking with you all about. And I understand it. You know, if you're not getting funded, there's not a whole lot of incentive. And if you're not involved in a local, say, coordinated entry process or LHC, where everybody's looking at data there, not a lot of incentive. Those are things we need to change, and we are changing. So I'm going to move on to proposed policies and action items. If you can pull up the prioritization notice. Oh, you didn't?
But it's in the article.
Okay, give us just a minute. You just go show me.
What's it called?
So while they're looking for that, this is that one thing I referenced on the score sheet where we got 0 points. And this is also part of requiring our grantees to prioritize according to this notice. So when they start using our CE workflow and prioritizing their clients, which is on July 1st, this is the basis of that. So not only do we need to, again, adopt this as a continuum, we have to ensure that it's actually happening. So it's CPD notice 1412. So do you want to like just summarize? I mean, I can read to you all.
Yeah, so that's the description.
I mean, I teach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sophia is going to hop in and go over this with you all.
So this notice actually, as you guys can see, came out 2 years ago. And what it is outlining how permanent supportive housing projects or PSH projects that are dedicated, that have beds dedicated for chronically homeless individuals,
Which will be all of our PSH projects?
how they must prioritize clients. So Craig, can you scroll down to see? It'll help, I think, if you guys see it rather than me just telling you. Yeah, go in there. And then scroll. Do you see where it says order of priority and CoC funded? That's what we want to go down to.
There's a reason we're not making y'all look at the 20-page notice.
Yeah, it's huge. So scroll down a little bit. So basically what it says, so you can see here our first priority for beds is chronically homeless individuals and families with the longest history of homelessness and with the most severe service needs. And the way that we are determining that in the balance of state is the utilization of the VI-SPDAT or the VI-SPDAT score. So if a client has a high score on the VI-SPDAT, let's say a 20, which is indicative of PSH being the most appropriate intervention for them and then them also being a very vulnerable client, if there is another client that presents that also needs PSH but has a 12, you are going to prioritize the client with the 20 over the other client. So that's basically what this notice does. It outlines the priority for all of those beds that are dedicated for chronically homeless, which in the balance of state is going to be all of our PSH beds. This is a great thing because it is forcing our providers to serve people that absolutely need the assistance and could potentially die on the streets without that assistance. So HUD is, and I use forcing for a reason because HUD is forcing us to do this. HUD is forcing us to serve the hardest to serve. I think for too long we've gotten away from that, and that's why we have people who have been on the streets for decades. And this is HUD's way of turning this into a system where homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring. The number one benefit, I like this actually.
I feel like we're on Jeopardy or like an interview or something.
So the number one benefit for providers, and we actually heard this on one of our internal process review calls yesterday, which was really awesome, is that it takes the subjectivity out of the process. So by utilizing the VI SPDAT, you are using an objective tool that tells you what the recommended housing intervention is for a client, and it also tells you how vulnerable they are. So this, I think that is truly the number one benefit to our providers, is the use of this tool that that will help them make these decisions. And we don't have to basically depend on, well, we know this client, or they were the first one to get here, or we feel like it, or we did an interview with them and they seem motivated. HUD doesn't care about that. HUD wants us to serve the hardest to serve. Any more questions? I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, one thing, and if you can go back to just the three, because I do want to go over those bullets before we vote. The description. There you go. Yeah.
And then, Gary, did you have a question?
I did. I was just going to ask if you could send us this notice.
Yeah. We'll send that for
Email the notice to us.
Was that the full notice? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, send that in an email. I just think that, and I'm thinking just for myself at our, on the local level, that we need to probably share this on a local level and just reiterate this.
Absolutely.
It would be good to have, it'd be good to have this notice.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm not even gonna go there. So here's one thing about this notice, y'all, that we are working with other balances of state and HUD on, is that, okay, this is, right, all of our permanent supportive housing, and this is just for permanent supportive housing, right, there will eventually be a prioritization for rapid rehousing. We don't have it yet. So just for permanent supportive housing, again, any of our projects that are not serving the chronically homeless and are dedicated, we've spoken with them. They know that that's the case. We'll work with anyone who reallocates to PSH on that, and that's a requirement already per HUD for any new project, and has been for several years. One issue we have with this, and other balances of state have, is we also know that because of our geography, there are certain places and there will be certain programs where there may not be a chronically homeless individual or family to serve. In that case, you can just serve the next most vulnerable person. However, HUD, sorry, throat there. HUD in this notice says in your entire CoC geography. What that means to us right now is if we have a permanent supportive housing opening in Denton and there are no chronically homeless individuals or families in Denton, which is unlikely, that we could have to accept a client from Laredo into that project. Well, that makes no sense, right, on a number of levels, and most importantly for the client. So what we're working on right now is working with HUD and other balances of state to get some specific guidance for balances of state on this. So it doesn't change the fact that we need to adopt it, that we're going to ask you all to vote on it today. It's just going to change how we implement it. And I can tell you already, we found some discrepancies in what balances of state have received from HUD in response to this. We're not surprised by that. It happens all the time. Again, one of the good things about this competition I've seen is that we are all coming together. So we are working with other balances of state. We're getting any responses some have already received. We're also submitting questions to see what HUD tells us. And if we need to, we will all work together as balances of state to make a request of HUD. And there's already been some discussion to do that at NAH in July. So, does anyone have any questions about that? So again, we're working on that implementation piece of this. I don't suspect this will be an issue immediately anyway, but it absolutely will come up, and we want to have an answer for you all on how to handle it. The 3 goals through the notice are to establish an order of priority for dedicated and prioritized permanent supportive housing beds, which COCs are encouraged to adopt in order to ensure that those persons with the most severe service needs are given priority. So what Sophia just showed you, again, was that specific portion of this 20-page notice, which we will send out to you. I recommend reading it in a hammock. Maybe you want to review the interim rule while you're at it. Like, have yourself a really great afternoon. Number 2, inform the selection process for PSH assistance not dedicated. That's not going to apply to us because we're not going to have that. But the good thing about this notice, again, is it does allow for service areas that don't have a chronically homeless individual or family to allow someone else, literally homeless, to move into that unit. We are just getting details on what that service area is going to look like. The 3rd goal is to provide uniform record keeping for all recipients of CoC program funded PSH for documenting chronically homeless status of program participants when required to do so, as well as provide guidance on recommended documentation standards that COCs may require of recipients if priorities in the notice included are adopted by the COC. Yes.
When you guys read this, just so you know, it will have the definition for chronically homeless in the notice, and I don't know if it's been updated. It might be updated. Okay, good.
Okay.
You did.
This is 14.
So I'll look into that and see if it's the same.
Yeah, so of course when we implement, and this will be in our written standards, we'll have the updated definition. I hope all of our projects are already using that because they should have been since January. And I'm going to move on this, and everyone is eligible to vote. Does anyone have any questions about CPD Notice 1412 and why we are adopting it as a continuum of care? Okay. So at this time, I would like to ask someone to make a motion to adopt Notice CPD 1412, prioritizing persons experiencing chronic homelessness in PSH and record-keeping requirements for documenting chronic homeless status in the Texas Balance of State.
Bobby makes the motion.
Need a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
And Jesse second.
The action items. Oh. I thought I made that one.
That was Hannah and Jesse seconded.
We only need one. So who was first? Okay, so Bobby made a motion, Hannah seconded. Can everyone else please let Craig know your vote?
Kelly, yes.
Mike, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Jesse, yes.
Jesse, Carol, Mike, yes. Bobby was a yes. That was everybody.
Karen, yes.
There it is. Thank you, Karen.
Okay,
We'll see.
thank you all. So yeah, motion passed to adopt Notice CPD 1412 will be indicated in our meeting minutes. Craig, will you check? I do feel like we had that. In the folder. Oh no, we said it's number 6. There we go. So y'all, we've just put up, sorry, our 2 action items for today. So thank you all. This is fantastic because we now can answer yes to this on the NOFA. Now our work is going to come and working with our project to make sure it's actually happening in practice. But voting to adopt was the first step, and thank you for your help. Action item 2, and this is a tricky beast because, well, right now we don't have an HMIS funded COC project. As I said, there were 33 other COCs that ranked HMIS where we did, and I think this was my 3rd question when I started here after the SSOs and the transitional housing was the HMIS ranking. My experience with COCs has always been that HMIS was ranked first because, again, without it, COC is put in a not a good position to provide you all with the support you need and to operate the COC, as that is one of our main requirements to do so. I don't know of a COC that didn't experience this cut that isn't going to be passing this similar ranking vote in their continuum. And most COCs that I've spoken to that had HMIS in Tier 1 but not in their #1 slot have changed this. So we don't know yet if there's going to be an HMIS project. It could potentially be some reallocation dollars. It could be bonus dollars. If there's an opportunity, we need to ensure that there is a COC HMIS project in this next competition. I can't guarantee that's going to happen, but we wanted to go ahead and get this taken care of if that's the case. Of course, if it comes to reallocation, we're going to be working with you all to determine if this can even happen. But we feel like we're waiting on so many things from HUD. We do feel like there are some very clear things we can do now, and we feel like this is one of those. So action 2 is in regards to ranking, and is the Texas Balance of State will rank the Texas COC HMIS project #1 in the competition for HUD COC program funding. It indicates the importance of HMIS data in evaluating the performance of projects in the COC system. And 2, the value add of HUD COC program funding to continue administering the HMIS project. We actually, because we don't reinvent the wheel if we don't have to, took this language directly from Houston, who, as most of you know, were the #1 ranked COC in the country this year, and we are thrilled for them. And we also would love someday to have 4 or 5 full-time CSH. To have 4 or 5 full-time CSH staff working with the Balance of State. And that's also something we are looking into funding for. It may be a little more of a pipe dream, but I believe it can happen. So, okay. Never mind. So, questions on this before we move forward. And again, we are saying this knowing this project may not exist. If it does, we would like to see it ranked #1 to prevent the situation that we are in now from ever occurring again.
No question.
Okay. I will then go ahead and ask for someone to make a motion on action 2 to vote on ranking the COC's HMIS project #1.
This is Jesse. I make a motion to rank the BoS COC HMIS project #1 in the next competition.
You know what, Jesse? And thank you. And coming from someone that is going to be competing for this funding, I hope all of the rest of you are listening. We're just looking at our notes, and we actually need, because you and Carol will have projects being ranked, are going to request that you all recuse yourselves from this particular vote.
Bobby seconded. Bobby, will you make the motion? Bobby makes the motion.
Okay, Bobby's made the motion. We need a second.
Hannah will second
Karen,
it.
second.
Hannah said first. Gary.
Hannah second. So Bobby motion, Hannah second. Everyone else, we need a vote, please.
Karen, yes.
Sharon, yes. Kelly, yes. Bobby, yes. Mr. Cagle, how you vote?
I'm here.
Yay or nay?
Yay.
Got it. Karen was yes. Mike was yes.
So those are the 5 that can
That's
vote.
All right, thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you, everybody. Wait, we have 8 people on the call. Yes.
I'm only
And
seeing
do you have
7
your-
now.
Julia.
Julia. I don't know what you meant.
Well, we've got a majority of who's here.
Okay, we do.
Okay, so motion passed. Thank you all. Moving on to governance, and Mary is going to talk to you all about this. If we can put up number 7. It'll be our longest board meeting ever.
All right. So on the screen, you'll see your board member terms. Off to the pink are 1 year, and green are 2 years. So Jesse, Karen, Carol, Mike, and Julia's terms are set to end this September because you are in seats that are 1-year terms. But there is no rule in our bylaws right now, or in our governance charter, that says a person cannot run for the same seat again. Just know that actual position's term will end. And then the ones in green, those terms will end at the end of next year. So we wanted to just remind you of which seat you're in, and also a reminder that we have a few vacancies currently. And so our total board membership is 11, but we've been working with 8. We could not find enough RPG members to fill slots 1, 2, and 4. Because those are, again, designated to be filled by an RPG member. I don't know that that's going to be a problem in the upcoming year because we have a lot more active homeless coalitions who have, in fact, selected RPG members. And we'll get to that part in a minute, too. And so, again, we just wanted to show you, it looks like Hannah, Bobby, and Kelly are going to be continuing into a second year because your term is 2 years long. And let's show, let me talk only about board member attendance. Some of you all have been attending most of the meetings, and you have an 80% or 100% attendance rate, but 3 people have only attended 3 of the 5 meetings that we've had for a 60% rate, and 2 people have only been able to attend 2 of the meetings for a 40% attendance rate. And the board member election policies and procedures require that board members attend at least 75% of the all regularly scheduled board meetings. So what that means is we have, including today, 2 meetings scheduled. So June meeting and August meeting. If everybody and y'all are all here today, so that's great. Your percentage is going up. But if we only count those 2 remaining meetings, there will be a total of 7 meetings for the year. And anybody right now who is at 60% or less will not be able to reach 75% with only 2 meetings remaining. So that's the way the current board member policies are written. And then we would have to decide what to do about that, particularly because some of the people are in a 2-year position and they would be continuing that position. But in year 1, they would not have reached that threshold of having attended 75% of the board meetings or more. We've discussed a couple of alternatives that you all could consider, including counting the upcoming September full membership meeting. So it's not a board meeting only. It's a joint meeting between the CoC board and the CoC general membership. So kind of combining the board meeting and the RPG meeting in September. And that will be held on the morning of Wednesday, September 21st, immediately prior to our Texas Conference on Ending Homelessness.
Can I just ask, for those of you that already know you're going to be at the conference, can you let us know? Either just speak up or type in.
What was the question?
Who's coming to the conference? Who's already registered?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going, but I haven't registered yet.
Okay. That was Jesse. Bobby will be there.
This is Karen. I'll be there. I'm just not sure what days, but this meeting you're talking about, what time are you planning on doing it? Because that'll probably determine my agenda.
Like 9 to 11 about that morning, Wednesday, September 21st, and that is here in Austin this year. So if we count that meeting as one of the board meetings, that gives us a total of 8 for the year. And if the people who are now at 60% attend today's and the next 2, that will bump them up to a full 75%. So then the only people who would not be able to meet that 75% by the end of the year, this fiscal year, are the people that are currently at a 40% attendance rate, and we have 2 of those. Alternately, you all as the board could make the decision to change the board policies and procedures to include, for example, last October's general membership meeting when you all were elected to be a board member, or any of the 3 special called board meetings that we've had.
Which there will be many before October this year.
And there will be many more. So we could amend the policies and procedures to say any regularly scheduled board meeting and any special called board meeting. So again, we've already had 3 of those, one on October 23rd, one on November 4th, and one on November 13th. Unsurprisingly, those were all in relation to last year's CoC competition, which was held later in the year than we anticipate it will be held this year. So just kind of food for thought for you all, and I can send you individually what your exact attendance has been so far.
And I guess I would just ask those board members that have 2-year terms with low attendance, please take that into consideration whether you can make this commitment for a second year. And also, any board members who already know they're going to want to run again, please let us know that as well. Because we are, well, Mary will talk about it more, but the more of that information we can have up front, the better. It can help us determine what kind of recruitment we need to do. And we're also going to ask you all to assist with some of that. And I also just want to say, if we add those additional meetings, which I have no problem doing. I mean, to me, if you call a meeting and you're there, you should get credit. It doesn't mean we don't need you at the other meetings. As y'all have seen multiple times, at least since I've started, we were unable to vote because of lack of attendance. And I think one way that we have resolved that is through the electronic voting, and that's been great. But ideally, and most specifically for competition meetings, we really need to hear from you all. So we're not asking for a vote on this today. I think Mary's going to send out some more information, and I also know she has more to say, so I'll stop interrupting her.
All right. Well, yeah, so the next bit about the elections, as Cameron said, is that we are going to ask for your help in recruiting candidates to run for the board. We'll probably start that process in July because again, the elections will be held on September 21st, just prior to our conference. And so we'd love to get a big slate of officers, or at least a full slate of people to run, particularly for these RPG member positions, but also for any of those positions that are 1-year terms that will be up for re-election. That right now, the 2-year term positions are not scheduled to be elected in September, obviously, because that term does not end until next year. However, if you are not planning to continue your term or fulfill the entire 2-year, please let me know that as soon as possible.
Spot 2 and spot 4 will not be filled until the next this year, just run them on a one-year term.
That's a good idea. Because, as Craig said, seats 2 and 4 are a 2-year term, but they have been vacant for this first year. We need to write something about that to fill that unexpired term, so they could have a second year in that position without having had a first year, but we wouldn't have to wait until 2017 to fill it. That's a really
it's
good
not
point.
filled. I don't think there's an issue or.
Really?
Why
Deciding whether
yeah.
to make them 2 years.
Are you available just to like cut and paste and put me into like 2 or 4?
Well,
I love that idea, Jesse.
you know what? Let us think on that. Honestly, I'm just saying, like,
Bob's got a question. Is there any rule which limits?
That's what I was thinking too. This is Karen. My community service.
She was thinking.
no, I mean, y'all, I'm thinking the same thing. If we have experienced members that want to and are already in a seat, why wouldn't we extend those seats? You just need to make a change in our charter. So, and y'all probably have to vote on it, so let us work on that. Please, like I said, Mary's going to send this stuff out to you. She's going to send out your attendance. Please reply and let her know, one, if you're in a 1-year seat and you're interested in being in a 2-year, if you're in a 2-year and you have challenges this year and you don't feel like you can commit to another year. Again, knowing all of this, the sooner the better really helps us. And we've got a lot of work to do. And honestly, getting all these positions filled will also mean you all will be able to miss more meetings. Not that we ever want that to happen. You know what I mean? But the more people we have, the easier it will be for us to get a quorum.
Is there any rule which limits the persons on the board to only one person?
If there's not, there will be. And honestly, we don't have all of that in front of us, Bobby. We'll double check, but I can't imagine that is not written somewhere.
Actually, it may not be written because I think we haven't thought of that. We have a more general phrase in the board member policies and procedures that say we want to have not only a diverse representation by designation of the seat, but also by geography.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that would prohibit, well, not even necessarily, but I'm thinking of your organization, Bobby, Family Endeavors. You guys are all over lots of communities, so we might just need to make that clarification.
Yeah, we'll flush that out and get back to y'all on that.
Okay, so then kind of along these same lines of electing board members and how we're operating, we had a second question for you. How can we conduct the work of the CoC board better? And a follow-along question I want to ask before we get into the discussion, how can we help board candidates better understand the roles and responsibilities of a board member? I know you all are the first year of board members. We're under our new kind of more formalized approach. So we did have some materials for you, but now that you've got almost a year under your belt, you probably have a much better idea of what the expectations are and how we could have better prepared you. And so we would love to hear that feedback, either now or send me an email or give me a call and we can talk about it. So from those two perspectives of how has being a board member worked for you so far and what we could be doing differently or better to help you fulfill that role better, and anything that you would recommend that we could do differently for potential new candidates. So again, if you have a comment now, we'd love to hear it. If you want to send me some later or talk to me later, we can do that too.
Well, I can save this for later.
I know it's a little bit putting you on the spot.
Yeah, think about it. Let us know. I just know that some members who feel very prepared and or even know they were getting nominated, which I can imagine was surprising. So we just, again, we want to make sure those that are continuing, those that may or may not be continuing longer than expected, know what they're getting into, and more specifically, we want to make sure new board members are clear on the expectations.
This is
Cameron,
Carol.
this is Karen. I have a little suggestion.
Mhm.
And I don't know how doable or feasible this is, but when you talk about you're really wanting to get the word down to your LHCs, have you thought, I'm sure that Mary, I know she's been collecting when everyone meets, dates, times, etc., for their local coalitions. Have you thought about maybe doing like a recorded webinar or something that the LHCs could utilize in their meetings over the summer that would basically explain, requirements of the board, being a board member, requirements of being an RPG rep, what it involves, why we need our LHCs involved. I'm just thinking, and send it out to, all of the chairs or presidents. So there's more of a trickle-down effect, so to speak. So maybe you would have more understanding and involvement from your homeless coalitions, and then maybe that would help fill some vacancies. I don't know. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. And we've provided all of that in writing and in PowerPoints, but I mean, yeah, we can do it in a webinar.
Yeah, I love that idea of a webinar. And now that, again, all of us have had more than a year working under this new governance structure, I think that in and of itself helps, and people are a little bit more aware of what does it mean to be a board member and RPG member. But I think that's a really, really great idea, Karen, something that LHCs can use and better understand. And yes, I think it's a great recruitment tool too. So thank you for that idea.
Yeah, and it ties into what we're going to be talking to y'all about regarding the RPG structure as well, which we talked about at the last board meeting.
All right. Well, again, I'd love any feedback that you have, and you're welcome to email or call me, and I will be sending you more information about your specific situation as well. And that's the conclusion of board member elections and terms. Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Okay. So the next item, and this is the last item before overall Q&A. Thank you all for hanging in there with us. Again, just a recap of some of the RPG meeting options that y'all talked about at the April board meeting, one of which was requiring LHC chairs to be the main RPG representative. Again, trying to help that liaison role more so than our current structure has been able to with an RPG rep and an LHC chair. And we've gotten that feedback from some of the LHCs. And we think, too, that would give us an opportunity to work more closely with LHC chairs on what the LHCs are struggling with. So a little bit more of a two-way communication. I think we are pretty heavily one-way right now from the CoC to the LHC. But then besides reading meeting minutes from the LHCs, we don't have a venue right now for LHC chairs as a group to talk with us and to provide peer support. And we have also heard that as a need from a number of our LHC chairs. So we think that could be a really good move.
And we see it as a need. I mean, we see it frequently.
So, and again, we think that would be a really empowering move for LHCs in the CoC to have the LHC chairs be more involved. And then again, it's just more direct communication and ability for them to pass information back and forth between the LHCs and the CoC.
Right, and we don't have to wonder, right, if the information is getting communicated. We know that it is, and because of all of the work that's really going to be integrated between the CoC grantees, the balance of state, and the LHDs within the upcoming, I won't say year, but we'll make that plural years. We really feel like some structural changes are absolutely necessary. And Mary's going to talk to y'all about some things that we came up with. And when we talked at the last board meeting, we agreed to discuss here and present you all with some ideas.
Yeah, so then the second one you all had talked about, and this is the current situation too, that each LHC may have one additional member. The policy is currently written that if the LHC's first member is currently or formerly homeless, that they can have a second member. But if we change it to where the main RPG representative is the LHC chair, that might get affected. We also aren't sure what the benefit to the LHC would be to have an additional member. And so we wanted your feedback on that. Because the RPGs, right. So the point is that the RPG members don't really vote on anything. And so we haven't seen a benefit to the LHC of having an additional member, except sometimes they can share the duties. But if we're going to require LHC chairs to be the main representative, we're not sure if there is a benefit to allowing an LHC to have an additional member.
So yeah, we wanted to hear y'all's thoughts on that. We did want to require that there's a backup. So in the case a chair can't attend the meeting, that there is someone designated within that LHC to attend on the chair's behalf and share that information.
This is Karen. I've got a question. When you say LHC chair, like for both of my coalitions, we have several board members, so my assumption would be that would be the president position.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Saying that interchangeably. Sorry for not clarifying.
No, that's fine. And then for the other, we have several chairs. So I guess we would kind of have to figure that out.
So yeah, and I would think in that case, Karen, and we can talk more about this, but so I know of at least 2 coalitions, right, that have multiple chairs. We would think that in this instance, it would be the chair of the housing or homeless, because most of them have a housing committee, right, or homeless service committee. It would be that chair.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and we're reasonable about that. You know, we want to make sure that it would be the most appropriate person from the LHC, but definitely someone in leadership as a chair of some sort.
Yeah, this is Jesse. I like the opportunity to have a second RPG member from Corpus because with all the other advisory councils and things like that I meet with, it sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. I may forget a couple things. So it's very it worked out well for me to have Melinda as an RPG member as well.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. That's Jesse. I'm sorry. That's what we need to hear.
Yeah, well, and we're not leaning one way or the other. Just as we were, you know, kind of thinking about this internally, we thought, well, is there really a benefit to the LHCs of having a second member, or is that not even something that we would need to offer as an option because it's not really been valuable to them?
And I guess, Jesse, what I would ask back to you is, does that person have to be a member, or can that be the person you've designated as your backup? Right? Because those meetings are still going to be open, but if you have a designated backup, then we know you're going to get that information if you're unable to attend.
Right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense also.
Right. All right, then the third thing that you all had also talked about in April and we're revisiting is changing the name of the RPG meeting because we have so many acronyms, and it's not very clear to most people that the RPG meeting is sort of the CoC general meeting that for CoC program funded grantees, ESG program grantees, that is the one meeting per month that they are needing to attend in some cases in order to sort of get a point or points on funding applications. So we need to be more clear about what that one meeting is so people aren't unintentionally losing some points in funding competitions. For example, TDHCA in their state ESG competition requires all the COCs to verify attendance of the applicant agencies. And so if in our records we don't have the attendance, or if it looks like someone has not attended our RPG meetings, they will not earn those points in TDHCA's ESG application. And we heard from a number of people this year that they were confused, they didn't understand that the CoC meeting was different from their local homeless coalition meeting in particular. And then they also didn't understand that what we call the RPG meeting was in fact the CoC general meeting. So we know that it's been pretty confusing. And you all may have already been confused by that yourself too, because we have CoC board meeting versus RPG meeting, which is the more general meeting for the entire membership. So changing the name to something like CoC general meeting, that's maybe more easily understood as the meeting that every member can attend every month. And then also looking at holding possibly 3 meetings per month, not including your board meeting, which would still be limited to only board members and about bi-monthly. And that would be the CoC general meeting, a meeting for only CoC program grantees, and then a third meeting for people who would want to be on a data/HMIS work group.
Not people who want to, people who, anyone in the system with an HMIS administrator, or for DV projects, you know, their data, whoever their data entry person is. We have found, regardless of the fact that we are not holding that data, we've been providing a lot of support to those providers. I don't think we would require it of DV, but any project who is in our HMIS system would be required to attend that meeting. As would grantees be required to attend the program meeting. So I think what we're thinking, and something's got to happen with our work groups, y'all. This is also another issue with HUD and our structure. The thought is, right, the general meeting is just that. It's kind of, and that would, I'm thinking that would be more focused with LHC chairs and ESG grantees, COCs, if they wanted to attend. I think we need to look at what we're counting attendance for like, for example, ESG, right? That instead of just the one meeting, we have a grantee that's attended every single CoC grantee meeting. I don't know. We need to look at that. We want to make it easier, but we also need more engagement. So the concern with these would be for folks like Jesse. So, because you are the LHC lead and you're also a grantee, right? So we do feel like we're losing a lot of kind of the meat that we need to be getting in these meetings because it's such a wide audience. We also feel like it's very evident we need some more individual monthly time with our grantees. We know we need it with data. So we're interested to hear your thoughts on this. The CoC engagement was one of our low scoring areas.
Envisioning just the HMIS admins coming to that one,
I'm envisioning just the HMIS administrators coming to that, being required to attend, but anybody can, right? Anybody. And that's with all of these meetings. I mean, it's aside from CoC program grantees, I don't see a reason someone who's not a grantee needs to be at that meeting. But what are y'all's initial thoughts about those? And I know more meetings is what no one wants. We talk about this on a daily basis, but I also believe we have identified needs and requirements for these. So again, these aren't just for board. What do y'all think?
Are you asking that each agency, I know each agency has their own administrator, and that each administrator be required to attend this meeting, or that the local homeless coalition designate an HMIS lead and that individual?
I'm asking just that, I'm asking any project that is in the system that their administrator attends. Yeah, not just CoC funded projects. This is any program using our HMIS system has to be at that meeting. And I'll tell you, of these changes, that one is not optional. Like, we've got to do it. Our data, especially with our non-funded projects, is really negatively impacting us as a whole.
No, I like the idea because it gets us to a point where we're able to make data-driven decisions.
Yes.
Yeah. Sophia's heart just jumped over here.
So I guess really the ones we want to hear from you on is this kind of shift to just one for program grantees and then a general meeting. And I'll tell you, like I said, you know, if a grantee attends their program grantee meeting, we're not looking at them necessarily to attend the general meeting, but we are looking at those LHC reps, right, to attend those general meetings. And again, those general meetings will be open as they are now to anybody in the balance of state. But we feel like we're losing individual attention that is needed for grantees and LHCs. So the goal would be to, and we need to talk about this a little bit, but I would think the grantee meeting and the data meeting would happen before the general meeting so that what happened there feeds into the things we're asking you to work on as an LHC.
Kind of stacks, and all the information is flowing from one meeting to the next.
Yes.
And by the time at the end of the month we have the general meeting,
it's all there.
It's a review. We've covered every subcommittee. All the higher ups know, now all the lower downs know, and we're all on the same page.
That's the goal.
Hopefully by doing more meetings, they'll get shorter, which is typically what happens.
That's a lot of meetings.
I know.
You need them.
I want to say
that was Karen, right? Yeah, I know that voice. I'm like, but see, Karen, for you, you would only be going to the general meeting.
Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal. I'm still thinking about the LHC chair to be the RPG rep. So let me just play devil's advocate for a minute, really quick, because I know we're almost out of time. But like for me, I'm the RPG rep. I'm the RPG rep for 2 different homeless coalitions. I'm not the chair of either one. So that would knock me out of being an RPG rep, thus a board member. Yeah. Okay, which is fine if that's the way everybody wants it. But then I look at it on the other side. If I'm an LHC chair and I also have to be the RPG rep, that's real time consuming for someone. So you probably just need to maybe think about that a little bit, because if they're not only chairing their local homeless coalition, which takes up a lot of time, then they're also going to be the RPG rep, and then they potentially could be on the board. I mean, I'm just saying that may cause backlash either way, in that if your local coalitions find out, okay, well, if I'm president or I'm chair, then I would have to be the RPG rep. I could potentially be balanced state. I'm just thinking time constraints of these individuals. And then if you go the other way, in that you may find that you may not find people stepping up to serve on the board because they're already overloaded because they're already the LHC chair.
Right.
I'm just throwing that out.
No, and thank you. I mean, those are the things we need to think about. And the first thing I thought when you just said that is, well, if we're changing the RPG to a CoC general meeting and we're asking LHC leads chairs, what have you, to be there at those, then maybe we need to look at changing the RPG requirement to be on the board.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like the idea of your chair being, like the LHC chair being required to be a part of the general meeting. I think that's really important, and they should be. But I don't necessarily think that your LHC chair has to be the RPG rep. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it needs to be, you know, of course it's going to have to be someone very involved in your LHC. I don't know. That's just, and I'm only going off of like the two coalitions that I represent and how we're designed and how we work. I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, so that's what we need to hear, because y'all are going to think about things, because this is going to impact y'all.
We're going to be all of them.
Yeah, we have to be at all of them, right?
Yeah.
So,
And so, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about both of my coalitions. I'm thinking about the president of my Longview. He's already overloaded. I'm thinking this is going to blow his mind to find out, you know, he would have to be the RPG rep, plus do all these other things. And I think the pressure, and then it goes on beyond that, because every region wants to be represented as a rep or on the board, or at least my region does. That's the consensus. But when you're requiring one person, I mean, I understand for continuity and for information sharing purposes, but I think that's going to be too much for one person. So I don't know.
You see what she's saying?
no, I do.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, hear ya. We're taking notes. We're brainstorming. We need to hear from you all on this. I think, you know, the hope is that by knowing we've got the chairs at these meetings, that the information we're able to provide and the tools is ideally going to make the work they're doing a little bit easier. I mean, that's right. That's the intention. But I do hear what you're saying about as far as the board seat. So I hadn't thought about that, and we need to think about that.
Karen, I want to say too, this is Mary, you are one of these stellar RPG reps, and we do have a number of those. Unfortunately, we also do have some RPG reps that haven't been very active in their coalitions. And so we were, I guess, more looking at those because there have been quite a few. And so, you know, maybe the options that we've thought of haven't been applicable to every LHC, but certainly for some of those that where the RPG member is not very active, we were trying to find a way that we could mitigate that.
Well, I mean, and my thought is if you've got an RPG that's not active after a couple, you know, after the first few months, and they're missing the majority of the meetings, then that would be, at that point, I would think, you know, contact the LHC chair and say, look, you're going to have to pick somebody else, because basically this is a requirement.
Yeah.
You got to have somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, it may not be that it may not be that easy, but you know, I don't know.
I mean, that's the fun thing about balance of stage, every decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that suggestion. Yeah, kind of address where it is a problem, but maybe have some flexibility for communities where it hasn't been a problem. Well,
or maybe, okay, so here's another suggestion. I mean, if you're going to require the LHC chair to participate in the general meetings, maybe you could have some kind of wording that when you talk about that one additional member of the LHC, maybe require if the main RPG rep is not going to be the LHC chair, maybe that additional member has to be. So in other words, one of the two positions have to be the LHC chair. So if the main RPG rep cannot attend or participate, then your chair is the one who has to step in.
I like that. I really like that idea. I'm writing it down.
So in other words, your RPG rep can be anyone within your coalition that's voted upon that's willing to take that responsibility and then maybe further serve on the board. But then your backup, your secondary member would be required to be the chair, because the chair is going to have to be on the general meeting call anyway. You make that a requirement. So that just kind of covers both bases. If you've got some slack with your RPG rep, you're still covered because you know you've got your LHC chair required to be on the meeting anyway.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really novel idea. I like it.
I don't know how that'll affect your, I know when Jesse was talking about there's a rule about if the individual's homeless or previously homeless. I don't know how that.
Get that extra person because you have lived experience.
I still I don't know how that would play out with that either.
I want us to keep that. We haven't figured out how to play it into the changes, but I think it's really important. Thank you, Karen. Does anybody else have ideas? Like I said, like Jesse, you know, this would be a lot on you as well. Carol, yeah, any other ideas? And I know we're almost at time, but we really need y'all's help with this because y'all are going to be the ones dealing with it. Like I said, we're going to have to be at all of them no matter what, but we want to be mindful of your time. We want to be thoughtful about the structure and make sure we're getting the information to the right people and we're spending time with who we need to. And like I said, supporting our grantees and LHCs, which we're just finding that doing that in this one meeting is just not working.
I mean, I can see where, yeah, I mean, sometimes it is difficult to attend all of the meetings, but, you know, either way, even if I were not an RPG member, I would still find myself listening in on the call.
Yeah.
But,
well, I mean, we definitely, sorry, Karen. We definitely want to get this, ideally, we would have this in place, you know, around conference time and be able to talk about it at our meeting there. We have a little bit of time, but it's going to take some work on our end to figure out the structure and the nominations and changes to be made. So please, y'all think about this. You know, talk to those that you work with that it will impact, and please send us your feedback. So we're going to rely on you all to help us make this the most effective structure that it can be. And I'm just looking, we've got 2 minutes remaining. Like I said, our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, August 10th. Whether it's electronically or we attempt to see if y'all are available for another meeting, we will absolutely be reaching out to you before then, because as we start moving into more details on this reallocation and competition soon, we need y'all. Does anybody have a quick question or follow-up to today's meeting or statement, anything you want to share? All right. So we'll get these materials out to you all. We'll include the full 20-page notice. Oh, okay, it's in the chat.
The link is in the chat box.
The link's in the chat box too, if you want to look at it now. I just thank you all again for your participation, your support. We can't do this work without you. I don't know if it does or does not feel like that to you all. I just want to make sure you hear it. And just thanks for being here with us through a particularly challenging time, but we really do feel like, despite some pretty awful situations for projects and clients, that we are going to, we're going to, onwards and upwards from this is the only place to go. And we thank you for being here with us while we're doing it, and just also ask for your grace and patience as we are,
You're right.
yeah, we need like 5 of each of us right now. And we know it'll calm down, but please, if you reach out and don't hear back in a timely manner, understand where we are, and please, please do not hesitate to ask again. And that's not something I want us to get in the habit of having you all or anyone we work with have to do, but it is just our current reality. And with that, I will just say thank you all again. I hope you have a great week. We will be in touch very soon. And weekend's close. Hang in there.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
y'all.
Right.